I pushed open the door to Jacob's house, and the pulsing bass from the speakers hit me like a wave. The place was packed, faces I recognized from around campus, mingling with strangers, red plastic cups in hand, everyone trying to squeeze every last drop of summer out before the semester started. I made my way through, a few nods here, a smile there. But honestly, I wasn't here for small talk. I was here for the thrill, the wild electricity in the air, the feeling of being completely and unapologetically alive. The kitchen was chaos. People pouring shots, someone trying to light a cigarette, while another guy kept swatting at it with a beer. I grabbed a bottle of something that looked strong and poured myself a hefty amount. Not that I needed more liquid courage. Let's be real. I probably had too much already. But the burn as it went down was a reminder that tonight wasn't meant to be ordinary. I leaned against the counter, surveying the room. That's when I spotted him. Mark. I'd seen him around, mostly in passing, but he was hard to miss. Tall, confident, that kind of easy charisma that made you want to get closer, just to catch whatever made him radiate like that. He looked up, caught my stare, and just like that, the game was on. I walked over, my hips swaying in a way that I knew would catch his attention. You look like you're having fun, I said, teasingly brushing against him as I reached past for a drink I didn't even want. His eyes sparkled, that perfect mix of challenge and interest. Was about to say the same. You want to make it more interesting? A grin spread across my face. Oh, he was playing right into it. I didn't even need to answer. Instead, I grabbed his arm and tugged him toward the stairs. The music faded as we climbed, replaced by our footsteps and my growing anticipation. When we reached the top, I pushed the first door open without hesitation. A small, dimly lit room. A bed, barely made, the kind of setting where the mundane world felt far away. I turned to face him, and he was already closing the door behind us, the lock clicking into place. Wasting no time, huh? His voice was low, almost a growl. I shrugged, stepping closer, feeling the heat radiating off both of us. Summer's almost over. We don't have time to waste. And then we were on each other, lips crashing, hands exploring. I yanked up his shirt, my fingers tracing the defined lines of his muscles. His hands slid down my sides, fingers grazing the bare skin exposed by my crop top. The rest of the world blurred into nothing. It was just us, and I could feel every inch of me responding to him. The way he looked at me, pure hunger, mixed with admiration, added fuel to the fire burning inside. We were so caught up that neither of us noticed when the door creaked open. It wasn't until I felt someone else's presence that I glanced over my shoulder. Chris. I'd seen him with Mark before. He gave off a totally different vibe, more laid back, but with a mischievous edge. And right now, there was a knowing glint in his hazel eyes. Mark tensed beneath me, and I half expected him to jump up, to end this in some awkward exchange that would kill the mood. But he hesitated, like he wasn't sure where this was going either. Chris leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, making no move to leave. "Don't stop on my account," he said, voice light, like he'd just walked in to catch up with a friend, not at all fazed by the situation. "Unless you're up for sharing." I looked back at Mark, noticing the uncertainty flickering in his deep blue eyes, but the idea pinged something inside me, a rush of fun, and not an ounce of shame. I flashed a grin, feeling the heat between us intensify. "I don't see why not." Mark exhaled, a mix of relief and something else. Maybe he'd been wondering how I'd take it, whether I'd freak out or kick Chris out. but that just wasn't my style. Chris joined us, his touch cooler than Mark's, but just as deliberate. It was like they'd practiced, even though I knew this had to be our first time together in this combination. The tension mounted, every new sensation taking me higher. There was no rush, no need for words. Each movement, every touch, took me further from reality, dimming the world outside that small room until it disappeared completely. I was consumed by the fun, the thrill, riding their rhythm, losing myself to the moment like I had never before. The end came like a wave crashing, powerful, overwhelming, everything blurring around me. The intensity of the situation made the moment stretch out, lingering in the heat of that connection. It took a while before consciousness filtered back in, the world slowly settling around us. They both reached for tissues or whatever was handy while I collapsed back onto the bed, my pulse still racing. Mark finally chuckled, a low and satisfied sound, as if everything had turned out just as it should. Chris tossed one last tissue into the trash, not a hint of awkwardness in the room. "Not bad for a summer night," Chris remarked with a grin, tugging his shirt back over his head. Mark flashed me a smirk, tossing his jacket over his shoulder. "You're welcome to stay over, or—" He trailed off, giving me the option as casually as if we hadn't just shared one hell of a moment. I grinned back, slipping on my shoes. "Thanks, but maybe I'll grab another drink first." I wasn't done with this party, not by a long shot. All three of us made our way to the door, a satisfied vibe in the air. The night was still young, and there was so much more to experience. As I stepped into the hallway and heard the music thumping from downstairs again, it was clear that Jacob's party had just stepped up a whole notch in my book. I woke up with a pounding headache, my mouth dry as sandpaper. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar curtains, and I groaned, rolling over to escape its harsh glare. The events of last night flooded back. Mark, Chris, the three of us tangled together in a sweaty, passionate mess. I couldn't help but grin, despite the dull ache in my temples. "Just another crazy night," I muttered, stretching and wincing at the soreness in my muscles. As I gathered my clothes from the floor, a niggling feeling of unease crept in. I shook it off, chalking it up to the hangover. The house was eerily quiet as I made my way downstairs. Empty cups and discarded snacks littered every surface. I grimaced, grateful I wasn't on cleanup duty. The cool morning air hit me as I stepped outside, and I took a deep breath, trying to clear my fuzzy head. The walk back to my dorm was a blur of squinting against the sun and dodging early morning joggers. When I finally reached my building, Sarah was lounging on her bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I entered, a knowing smirk on her face. "Well, well, well. Look what the cat dragged in," she teased. "Fun night?" I flopped onto my bed, kicking off my shoes. "You could say that." Sarah sat up, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Spill. I want all the juicy details." I recounted the night's events, playing up the excitement and downplaying the weird feeling in my gut. Sarah listened, eyes wide, occasionally interrupting with gasps or giggles. "Damn, girl," she said when I finished. "You really don't do anything halfway, do you?" I shrugged, forcing a casual smile. "Go big or go home, right?" Sarah shook her head, still grinning. "You're crazy, but in the best way possible?" I laughed, the sound a little hollow to my own ears. "Thanks, I think." I glanced at the clock and swore. "Shit, I've got class in 20 minutes." I rushed through a quick shower, threw on some clean clothes, and grabbed my bag. As I hurried across campus, I couldn't shake the feeling that people were staring. A group of guys near the library nudged each other as I passed, whispering and snickering. "It's all in your head," I muttered to myself, picking up my pace. "You're just being paranoid." But as I neared the lecture hall, more eyes seemed to follow me. A girl I vaguely recognized from a party last week gave me a look that was equal parts impressed and scandalized. I slid into a seat at the back of the class, trying to ignore the whispers and sidelong glances. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "You okay? You seemed off earlier." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. The professor started speaking, but I couldn't focus on his words. My mind kept replaying fragments of last night, searching for something I might have missed. I was just settling into my routine again, trying to shake off the lingering weirdness from that wild night at Jacob's party when my phone buzzed. A message from Jess, one of my sorority sisters. "Em, you need to see this. I'm so sorry." There was a link attached. My stomach dropped before I even clicked it. 14 seconds. That's all it took for my entire world to implode. The video was grainy, clearly shot on a phone, but there was no mistaking what or who it showed. Me, sandwiched between Mark and Chris, all of us naked and, well, you can imagine. I felt like I was going to throw up. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. It had already been shared hundreds of times. "Holy shit! Isn't that Emily from Psych 101? Damn, 2 holes. Queen living up to her name. What a slut, Ow." I slammed my laptop shut, my breath coming in short gasps. This couldn't be happening. How did someone even get this footage? Who would do this to me? My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from people I barely knew, asking if it was really me. Guys I'd turned down suddenly sliding into my DMs with crude propositions. I didn't know what to do. I felt dirty, exposed, violated. These people had no right to see me like that, to judge me, to reduce me to nothing but a body in a grainy video. I couldn't face anyone. I skipped my classes, ignored calls from my parents, and holed up in my dorm room. Every notification made me flinch. Was it another person who'd seen the video? Someone else to mock me or proposition me? On the 3rd day of my self-imposed exile, Sarah practically broke down my door. "Emily, open up, I know you're in there." I reluctantly let her in, feeling like a mess in my unwashed sweats, greasy hair piled on top of my head. "Oh, honey," Sarah said, pulling me into a hug. I broke down, sobbing into her shoulder. "I don't know what to do," I choked out between sobs. "Everyone's seen it. My life is over." Sarah rubbed my back, letting me cry it out. When I'd calmed down a bit, she sat me on the bed and looked at me seriously. "It's bad, Em. I'm not gonna lie. But it's not the end of the world. We'll figure this out." I shook my head. "You don't understand. The things people are saying, the messages I'm getting, I can't go back out there." "You can't hide forever," Sarah said gently. "Have you thought about reporting it? This has to be illegal, right?" The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. I was too busy spiraling. I don't know. What if that just makes it worse? More attention, you know?" Sarah nodded. "I get that. But Em, you need to think about the long term here. This video, it's out there now. What if a future employer sees it? I groaned, burying my face in my hands. I hadn't even considered that. Fuck! I'm so screwed. Hey, no, Sarah said firmly. You're not screwed. You're the victim here, okay? Someone recorded you without your consent and shared it. That's on them, not you. I wanted to believe her, but the sick feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. What about Mark and Chris? Have you heard from them? Sarah's expression darkened. Radio silence, assholes. That stung. I thought we had a connection, even if it was just for one night. The fact that they hadn't even checked in. Look, Sarah said, grabbing my hands. You can't stay in here forever. Why don't we go grab some coffee? Baby steps. The thought of facing the world made me want to crawl under my covers and never come out. But I knew Sarah was right. I couldn't hide forever. Okay, I said quietly. Just give me a few minutes to get cleaned up. Sarah squeezed my hand. Take all the time you need. I'll be right here. As I stood under the hot shower, trying to wash away the past few days, I realized this was just the beginning. The video was out there, and I couldn't take it back. All I could do now was figure out how to move forward. But with every person who'd seen that video, every crude comment and unsolicited message, it felt like a piece of me had been taken. I didn't know if I'd ever feel whole again. For the next few days, I barely left my room. The curtains stayed drawn, the sunlight turning my space into a dim cave. My phone, once my lifeline to the outside world, now felt like a ticking time bomb. Every time it buzzed, I'd get this tight knot in my stomach. Maybe it was a new message. Maybe another hateful comment. Maybe another sick bastard thinking he could get a piece of me just because of that stupid video. I'd see the pings lighting up my screen, too afraid to open any of it. My only contact with the outside world had been Sarah, checking in with her usual concerned texts, offering to bring over food, begging me to come out and grab a coffee with her. She was only trying to help, but her pity just made me feel even worse. I had too much time to think, alone with just the echoes of my own shitty choices. My head was a mess, the line between who I was and what everyone thought of me getting blurrier by the minute. I wondered if maybe Sarah had a point. Maybe I should report the video. But every time I thought about going through all the bullshit legal processes, retelling every humiliating detail to a judge, or worse, my parents, I lost my nerve. Getting the video taken down was one thing, but I knew it wasn't going away anytime soon. Some dude would probably re-upload it to another site with the click of a button. It wasn't exactly rare content, right? All it takes is the wrong link in a browser, and there I am, spread out for the world to see. But then something snapped. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was just a desperate need to reclaim something of my old self. I'm not sure. But whatever it was, it made me grab my phone with newfound resolve. I opened up those cursed messages, one finger hovering over the name of some guy I didn't know who'd messaged me after the video blew up. Hey, just saw the vid. Damn, girl, you're hot. You looking to meet up? I stared at his message for a long time. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to be mad. Sick, sure. Furious? Not really. Because the more I read his message, the more I felt something unexpected deep in the pit of my stomach. It was gratification. The validation I didn't even realize I was craving. On one hand, some random scumbag thought he could just have me because he saw me in some video. But on the other, this guy was turned on by me, wanted me. That alone made my cheeks flush, a shiver running down my spine. Before I knew it, my fingers flew over the screen, typing out a reply. Glad you enjoyed the show. What else do you want to see? I hit send without thinking, and there it was. The first see-through crack in the wall of shame I'd built around me. His reply came quick, and soon after, we were talking in ways that made my blush deepen. I wasn't just indulging him. I was enjoying it too. Some twisted part of me liked the fact I had this power. I could make some stranger on the other end of a screen beg, send him on the roller coaster of his life, all because of that dirty video. I started responding to more messages, always keeping the conversation teasing, flirty. Some guys wanted explicit pictures, and while I wasn't exactly uploading nudes to the chat, I'd give them just enough to keep them hooked. A flash of cleavage, my lips turned up in a wicked smile, or a shot of my abs under a cropped tank. It was weird, really, how just days of avoiding messages turned me into a pro at navigating the sticky web I was in. I didn't even realize I'd walked into it willingly until too late. Then the pleasure demon started. I'd open the weaker guys up to my teasing, start with a few suggestive words, then leave them waiting for more crumbs. I think part of me liked their desperation. Another part of me craved it. The comments that had once sent me into hiding didn't sting anymore. They were adulations, fuel to a different fire inside me. A fire where I realized this entire thing turned me on. One guy asked if I'd meet up with him. Usually I'd shut it down, thinking about the risks, but tonight I wanted more. I pinged him back almost instantly, something utterly reckless inside me dancing a jig. "Sure. Where are you?" His reply didn't take long. He asked me to meet him at his place near campus, late around midnight, when no one would really notice someone sneaking into an apartment building. I knew the risks, but I was already pulling on my jacket, a surging excitement dwarfing the screaming warnings in the back of my head. Sarah was asleep, tucked under my extra blankets on the floor, just in case I'd had another meltdown. I slipped my door shut, soft as a whisper. I felt alive in a way I hadn't before, the darkness outside somehow cradling me, the cold night air pricking against my cheeks and making my skin buzz. By the time I reached his building, I was practically floating. I punched in his code as he'd instructed, sliding inside the elevators, racing up to the 5th floor. When the doors dinged open, I was in a full stride, strutting down the corridor to his place where he met me at the door. His surprise at how fast I came said it all. His red cheeks and lingering looks basically begged for permission. He wasn't Mark or Chris, not someone I particularly desired, but he was there, enraptured by me, and that was exactly what I needed. I saw him hesitating, unsure if he should speak first, and I decided to lead the way. I walked forward, crowding him in his own space, and whispered against his ear, "You saw the video, right?" His small nod set chills running across my body, the kind that made you feel alive. "Then I guess you know what I'm capable of." From there, it was like an unhinged descent into reckless excitement, him fumbling and shaking with desire, and me taking strange delight in it all. Whatever fear I held over being filmed or torn apart online just fell away as the scene unraveled. The few moments where I let go and played into every part of it released me in ways I didn't know possible. When I slipped out of his place, the night still cradled me, the dark sky merging with fresh thoughts in my head. But this time, the rush didn't taper out into something worse. I didn't feel dirty or shameful leaving. In fact, I felt more powerful. What electrified me wasn't just the sex. It was everything else, knowing that other people felt this magnetic pull toward me because of something as basic as a video. I know how messed up it sounds, but deep down, A mix of desire and pure validation festered in me. I relished it, rolled it over in my mind repeatedly, as if savoring an expensive dessert. When word got around campus about my late-night escapades and dirty exchanges, it only fueled the rumors, spinning bigger and faster around the whispered halls. As some sick joke or twisted sort of acknowledgement, everyone started calling me Two Holes Queen. Half of me should have been upset by it, but like everything that had flipped since the video, the nickname became a new badge. I ran with it. Why the hell wouldn't I? The more everyone whispered about it, the more opportunities fell into my lap. Some brave souls venturing beyond their comfort zones to come talk to me, afraid to admit how much my new badge aroused them too. One guy literally waited for hours outside the dorms just to catch a glimpse before summoning the courage to strike up a conversation. I found it hilarious and kind of sad, but I invited him back to my room anyway. It was pretty clear what he wanted, and I wanted it too, to some extent. We didn't even bother with drawn-out chatting. He was ready to go the moment we hit the sheets. An hour later, I was alone in my bed, spent and grinning, replaying how I'd made him stumble over himself because I was just that bold. This led to even more encounters. My own inner beast, craving and consuming each one like I was insatiable. It wasn't only the initial excitement that pulled me in. It was the weight of whispers around the school, the curious glances frequenting more and more. Mark came back around too, along with Chris, both intrigued by this new shadow over me. Two Holes Queen. The girl they once shared on tape, now practically legendary on campus. But the more I followed that hunger, the more I started to ache. Not physically. That was fine. It was something deeper that gnawed at me at night when I was finally alone and quiet. The rush never lasted long, no matter how wild it got. That fleeting request for just one more round or one more pair of hands against my skin began to feel like echoes in a really empty room. It should have scared the crap out of me when Mark joked at a party about how I could probably handle both of them, plus another. But it didn't. I wasn't horrified. I was just there, going along with it, because that's what everyone expected, right? People expected the wild and daring Emily, not some introspective chick too scared to admit she didn't know what the fuck she was even doing anymore. I used my doubts like makeup, layering and layering until you couldn't see them beneath my face. But then they'd appear at the oddest moments. Like when I was laughing along to a joke or smiling as I danced close to another random guy at a party. Underneath it all, something hollow gnawed deeper, further into me. The thrills I got from playing into other people's fantasies started to lose their edge. Guys still lined up, but their desperation no longer felt as exciting. It became predictable. Their hunger no longer filled me up. It only mirrored my own, throwing back my need for something bigger, something real, something I just couldn't find. One evening, I stared out my window into the city buzzing beneath me. It was quiet again, the din of parties and footsteps growing distant, like it was moving quicker than I could keep up. Then, unexpected and unbidden, this realization hit me like a freight train. I'd been using all of these experiences to cover up something I didn't want to face. That tight knot in my stomach had unraveled into a horse's fist, and I was finally feeling it in full. This whole time, I wasn't just crazy for adventure. I was just crazy for something, anything, to mask what was really going on. For even more uncensored adult stories, follow us on Twitter @X, link in video description. You won't want to miss what's next. To miss what's next. To miss what's next. To miss what's next.